All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are on week 7 of this program. So congratulations to each one of you that have been here, that are catching up, that are engaged, all of it. We are very glad that this program is helpful for you. And I am gonna start sharing my screen here in a bit. Give me 1 second. Of course, it began in the place I didn't want it to. All right, so today we're going to talk about content that converts.
Sorry, Ani, to interrupt you. Could you make it full present mode?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Didn't realize that.
Thanks.
Here we go. All right. So today we have Gabriel Shields, and he's going to talk to us about content. We were going to have somebody talk about legal aspects of being online, but that fell through. We'll figure out when and how we're going to deliver that information to you. Please remember that all of these sessions are being recorded, not the breakout sessions. That is your time to talk with your group. If you can please remain muted, that would be great. And please rename yourself. Just click on the bar on participants, click to your name and rename. Make sure that you put your cohort number in the front so we know where to send you when we do our breakout session. We want to thank all of our funders, and I want to actually give the microphone to Caroline so she can talk about it a little bit more.
Thanks, Ani. Yes, so this program is being funded not only by all of these amazing cities and counties and the federal government and nonprofits, other nonprofits and foundations, but the key thing I don't know if a lot of people know is that these cities and counties invited us in to serve their communities. So all the communities that we're in have invited us. I know many of you are on the call right now who are not from any of these cities or counties, and that's wonderful. We're welcoming everybody. But if you're finding the programming valuable, please contact your local mayor, your city manager, administrator, or even your county commissioner and say, hey, we would love it if you invited RAIN into our town. And then you can connect them to me. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, and we want to thank our cohort facilitators. We have a few changes, but nothing to be worried about. Not gonna name all of us, but here we are. We're all part of the RAIN team. And we have our mentors who are all professionals in digital marketing. Now, I thought that these two slides were together. So now I wanna have Caroline talk to you about the EDA funding for this program.
Yeah, thanks, Ani. This is really the main funder for this program. The cities and counties and those I had showed earlier are contributing to the program, but the bulk of it, 75% of it, is coming from the federal government through recovery and resiliency funds. And they're not only funding this RAINmaker, but we're going to be doing another RAINmaker in the spring. And then we're going to do a moneymaker, which is the financial literacy one, and really understanding, your balance sheets, your P&L, your cash flow, your forecasting. That will happen, I believe it's the fall of next year. But just want everybody to know, because we do have the in-kind sponsors, which we really appreciate, which is wonderful. But also this is the actual cash sponsor who's funding this. And then the other piece they're funding is not just the accelerators, RAINmaker, moneymaker, and raindrops, which is the what's next part after you all graduate and meet the criteria that Ani's going to talk about momentarily. Is the raindrops gives you that one-on-one connection to digital marketing experts that, again, I mean, the full value of RAINmaker and all of the free services is somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, depending on the experts that you get connected to. So it's a pretty cool thing. The other thing the EDA is funding is capital access. So if you're raising money or you need to raise somewhere between $50,000 and $250,000, we can help you do that. We're launching a crowdfunding platform in a couple of weeks. You just follow raincatalyst.org/raincap. Go to that link. If someone on my team can put that in the chat. and then fill out the intake survey. We ask you some questions, and then you'll get connected to Rick Hood, who's on this call. He's our Capital Access Director, and he'll review it and schedule a time to meet with you and take you through the steps to determine whether or not you're a good fit for crowdfunding. And then these are the in-kind sponsors, which just want to give another shout out to you guys for stepping up and being a part of the program. And then back to you, Lonnie.
Back to me. It looks like this one is the one that has all of the. All right, we're on week 7. We're going to be talking about content. Next, remember there is no class neither next week or the week after this. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about advertising on Google, Instagram, and Facebook. Your cohort's choice is email marketing. Since we're going to be talking about social media and that was your other choice on week 8, we thought that on week 9, having that conversation about using augmented reality for marketing and email marketing is going to be very beneficial for you. And then on week 10, December 15, we have graduation. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the pitch competition in a bit. I know you guys have a lot of questions about it. Then we're going to begin the presentation on creating content that converts. We'll do the breakout session in 10 and then come back to talk about the next steps. So first, let's talk about what you need to do in order to have your certificate of completion. If you guys are in any kind of programs that require you to have an educational aspect, this is something that is going to be useful for that. You just need to attend 8 out of the 10 sessions. If you have not been able to attend all of the sessions, do not panic. All you need to do is watch the recording and send me 3 takeaways of each of those sessions. It's as simple as that. And then complete 5 out of the 7 tasks or homeworks that we have been sending you so that you can apply everything that you've learned. And most importantly, just show up, have fun, and make it rain. We are going to be having some graduation prizes, and we're going to be talking about that more when we come back. For now, let's focus on the pitch competition. So you just need to create your pitch using Caitlin's template. Record it for 60 to 90 seconds. Send it to Anna at OregonRain.org. And you need to send that by December 3rd, that is a Friday, by the end of the day. This way, we're going to be able to look at all of the pitches. And what we're going to do is highlight the best ones. And then we're going to have a vote for everybody that attends that day and choose the winners that way. There are not going to be any live pitches. So you're just going to have to record it and send it over. You're going to have enough time to be able to edit your pitch, to practice, to perfect it, and then you won't have that pressure of being live and being here and all of that stuff. So then I'm gonna show you here is the template that we talked about. You just need to talk about the problem that your customer has, how you are bringing a solution into the mix, why should they work with you, what is the value that you're bringing, and then close the conversation. This close doesn't mean I'm gonna give you this product, so just pay me. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sale itself. It can be setting up an appointment, it can be setting up a call, it can be setting up a time to be able to talk more about your business, okay? This is just something that you do to present your business and then open up the door. That's essentially what your elevator pitch is about. Now, I want to pass it over to Caroline, who's going to talk about our keynote speaker for graduation.
Thank you, Ani. Yeah, Ani and I are super excited about the keynote speaker that we've secured for you guys. We've been really thoughtful. We wanted to make sure we picked the right person who could also speak to the content that you all wanted to hear about. So thanks for sharing in the surveys. One of the key topics you guys wanted to hear about was influencer marketing. And Leonard Kim has an incredible story. He actually came from being homeless and suicidal all the way to being this really well-known personal brand. So he will talk about some of the demystifying related to influencer marketing and how important it is for you to really build your own personal brand and what that means. So he's really well known. He's done TED Talks. And if you go to the next slide, Ani, he's published a book. And this book has been published by, shoot, I forget who the publisher is, but it's a really well-known publisher.
Hill.
McGraw-Hill, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. And so he will be giving 10 of these copies to the first 10 people who submit their video pitch. So those of you who get those pitches sent over to Anna, and I know that I think Jennifer put the link, the email to Anna, send your pitch to Anna at OregonRain.org. So the first 10 people to send their video pitch will get a copy of the Ditch the Act book. So we're excited about having Leonard be our keynote speaker.
There are a few questions over here about the pitch, so I am gonna try and answer them. So requirements as far as recording goes, just you can do it with your phone, really, and then just like pitch yourself talking about it. You don't need to prepare a whole presentation with slides and all of that. Keep it simple. It's just imagine that you are in an elevator with somebody. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Imagine that you are in an elevator talking with somebody, or that you just run into somebody on the coffee line, and then you're presenting your business. So that's the context and the situation we want to see. But you don't have to like edit it or anything like that. Just be natural, be yourself, and present your business in the best light possible. The due date is on December 3rd. That is going to be a Friday. So you guys have this week, next week, that is Thanksgiving week, and then the one after that in order to submit it. You have 3 weeks to do that. And then if you keep having more questions, just let us know. And I think I just answered all of them. But if you do have them, I will keep monitoring the chat to see what you guys have, what questions you guys have. So now let's present to you. I am having issues today with my Zoom capabilities here. There we go. Okay, so today we have one of your mentors, Gabriel Shields, present about content that converts. He is the co-founder and strategic manager of Benu Creative. It is a digital marketing agency that allows people or takes people through discovering their voice, their brand, their message, and refine the way that they present themselves into the world. Remember that the mentor hours are scheduled for tomorrow at 11 in the morning. You should all have received an email and a calendar invitation with that. And here I am getting ahead of myself, sharing what Gabriel is going to share. Gabriel, feel free to step in and share your screen.
Gabriel, we can't hear you. I don't know if you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to, I made Zoom just go away. And so I was like, okay, I can't find you all. All right, can you all see my screen? Are you just seeing going from ineffective marketing to content strategy at sales?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Today, this is gonna be the topic that we're gonna cover is gonna be all about how, you know, all of you in some regard are doing some form of marketing, whether you realize it or not, because it's all about building those relationships, and you cannot have a business without having some form of relationship with your customers. What we want to do is be able to make that more effective and do that with content that can supplement what you're doing. So I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to be talking about this, but oftentimes when we hear things that are involved in SEO, it can be very, very scary, right? Algorithms, analytics, data. We went through that a couple weeks ago, and I know that can be really, really challenging, and it feels like you're kind of in this wilderness. We're going to I'm going to hope to build off of that as well to kind of demystify that and show how content can relate to that in a very organic way, in a way that helps you all to really see how content can drive numbers and can create conversations. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'll go through our talking points in a second. Just a little bit about me. This is me and my beautiful wife, Kelly. We have been doing this business for about 3 years now, actually a little bit over that, probably about 3.5 years. And it's been really fun. Our goal really is to just help people define what their brand is and to help them discover that so they can develop an authentic brand strategy that builds loyalty and trust with their audience and their people. So not just externally with your customers, but also helping to unite your team. When everybody's on the same page, it makes brands just work a lot better. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover crafting a unique tone of voice, gaining a better understanding of your true customer, finding out what they truly want from your content, demonstrating clearer value, and then knowing the psychology behind buying behavior, and then also building strong connections with your marketing outreach. So because I'm a brand developer, I have to look at all of this through the lens of a brand. So before I do, I want to go ahead and just dispel a couple myths, and then we'll jump right in to the rest of it. The first thing is, I think I lost there we go. Lost my mouse for a second. Marketing is not your message. Branding is your message. So what I mean by this is, one second here. What I mean by this is that ultimately your brand is all about your marketing is all about what you're saying, right? It's your message. Marketing is just the vehicle that gets it out there. So I had thought that SEO was about marketing, since we're talking about content is how you promote and present, but we're going to talk a little bit more about brand identity so you can effectively market. And so the first thing is that branding is not logos, colors, fonts, or designs. I like to use the example of a restaurant here. If you walk in, there's an old expression, you go to a restaurant for the food, but you stay for the atmosphere. Well, branding is that atmosphere. It's kind of these transparent or invisible qualities that give you an experience. So it can really be about, the food is maybe the product or the service, right? But the ambiance is really what makes you go back. So if you have two restaurants side by side, and let's just pretend they had the exact same food, exact same prices, but one had better atmosphere, I guarantee you're going back to that. So we want to figure that out, and we want to think about that as we're producing our content too, because nowadays there's so much content out there that our content is really designed to drive our brand message, because brand ultimately is your reputation. Brand is your identity, it's the personality, or if we carry that same restaurant example through, it's the taste you leave in their mouth and when they walk away. If one of your employees is not happy and they badmouth you in their off hours, that damages brand reputation, right? It says something about your brand. If a customer buys something and it doesn't work and the customer service is poor and they don't feel like they got that solution solved, that says something about your brand. But on the flip side, if people go and say, I love working for this company, I love the culture, or they say, I got it delivered, it didn't work, but they immediately made it right, that says something. So ultimately, let's get cooking with this content. So trying to market without a clear brand identity is like trying to make bread without yeast, right? It doesn't matter if you got all the other ingredients right. If you leave out that yeast, it's not going to rise. So today, the first thing that we need to understand before we jump into building content is we need to understand a little bit about our brand and our brand personality and brand identity. Now, I will tell you guys that this is going to be a very, very high level. There's a lot that goes into this, but I wanted to touch on what I feel is the most relevant to the content today so that you all can get a bit of an understanding of this. So the first part is, here's one of the active ingredients. If we're carrying through that bread analogy here, is brand tone. If some of you may be familiar with the Jungian archetypes, this is by no means a new idea or concept. This actually goes back a long time. Jung was a sociopsychologist, and he had broken up the idea into the idea that our personalities are kind of fall into one of these 12 archetypes. And as you can see from the pie chart, that each one of these has its own they're segmented, like, so like for instance, ruler, creator, and caregiver, all their main goal is to bring chaos to order, or, rebel, magician, hero is maybe leaving a legacy. So at the center, the core is kind of the mission that drives, or what they're trying to accomplish. So as you look at that, you can kind of start to ask yourself, what do I identify with? What is my company? If my company was a person, if my brand was a person, how would it communicate? And maybe starting from the center and saying, is my main goal to connect with others? Is it to bring chaos to order? Is it to discover something sacred? Is it to leave a legacy? Let's say it's connect with others. Well, do you want to have people have more of a sense of belonging? Do you want them to laugh and enjoy life? Or do you want them to create intimacy? That's kind of that branch of how do you want to connect with others. And so that if you're saying, oh, I want them to laugh and enjoy life, well, then you know that you're probably more likely a jester. So I'm going to do a little activity with you guys.
Gabriel?
Yeah.
Should you try to fit neatly into one of the 4 groups, or is it okay to span more than one?
That is a fantastic question. My personal suggestion would be to do no more than 2. It is okay to have more than one. In fact, I think it's better to have more than one, and we're actually going to get there, and why that is. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but that is a fantastic question. So no, you do not have to fit neatly in one. I think that will make you a caricature more than authentic. So we'll get there. Do we have any other questions before I go on?
No, that was the one.
Okay, perfect. So I want to do a real quick activity. You guys tell me in the chats. Okay, so I'm going to go here. All right, we're going to compare these 2 companies. They offer the same product, but their tone is completely different, right? If you heard Allstate versus Geico, they both sell insurance, but there's a different approach there. So I'm gonna go back to the last slide, and I want you first to tell me who you think Geico is. Which one do you think Geico is? I'll give you a minute. What are we getting?
We're getting rebel, jester, a Geico build relationship, sage, jester. There are a lot of votes for jester. Yes,
jester's probably the closest, right? It's that funny that makes you want to laugh and enjoy life. I like to describe it like, Allstate's the guy that you might go next door to borrow a cup of sugar, maybe watch your kids, but Geico's the guy you're going to want to have a beer with at the end of the day. So it's really a lot easier to define maybe Geico, but let's try Allstate real quick. What do you guys think Allstate is? What do we think?
We got everyman, hero, sage, caregiver, and everyman, hero, caregiver, sage, hero.
Yeah.
Hero, everyman, sage.
You see that there are these are specific continuous patterns, right? Maybe not all of you fully agree, but there's we're hearing a lot of caregiver, a lot of everyman, right? So you can see that there's a clear identification. When we talked about Geico, there was a clear understanding. It's consistent, because if you turn on a commercial, a radio ad, a billboard, whatever it is that you see of Geico's or of Allstate, not State Farm, excuse me, there's a very clear understanding of that tone, and we want that to go into our content. So to answer the earlier question, this is why you want to go beyond the archetype, and it's to avoid becoming a caricature. Because if you say, oh, I just want to be a jester like Geico, well, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to try to fit yourself into a box rather than allowing creativity to flourish, right? So we want to use the archetypes more as a guide than a way of it's more of a guide than a behavior driver, right? Because if you drive behavior based on an archetype, then you become a caricature. So the question that was asked earlier, this is how you'll do that. So let's say you identified that you identify with the archetype that's the sage personality, and you feel it aligns with your values and goals. So you might say, okay, well, they want to seek truth, use intelligence, and gain understanding of the world, right? They're looking for what's true. They're using intelligence and information to drive their message forward. They want to gain an understanding of why things work, how things work, and they want to share that information. Well, if you just try to sound like an academic or an intellectual, you might alienate your customers, and you might also alienate yourself, because maybe you align with the sage, but there's more to you than that. Our personalities are, even as an organization, right? Because we just looked at organizations. If I say that looking at a brand as a person, Geico is made up of probably hundreds, maybe thousands of employees, right? But yet you still identify it as one piece. So we don't want to use this as a way of saying, oh, well, I have to fit into this box. We want to be able to expand on that. So here's how you would do that. You would look at what the traits are of a sage. So they want to they're driven by knowledge and wisdom. So maybe some of these traits. So then you decide what traits that fit best for you. Is it assuredness? Is it depth? Is it guiding? And you pick your top 3. And so here are some maybe you look at some brand examples to see if that really fits you. Google wants to put all the information out there. It's literally from the misspelling of Google, which means like an infinite amount of information. TED Talk, PBS, you can see the spectrum here, right? Google and PBS are very different, but they're both sages, and so there's probably another archetype. There's another trait so you're picking your 2, and you're based on those, you're looking at your traits, and you're picking those traits so that you can create ultimately a voice that comes down. So here's an example of ours, right? So innocent and sage. So don't worry about the percentages. That's just to see if you're more one than the other. So you would do we're this, not that exercise. So for instance, simple, the first thing you do is, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it's not actually like we're, simple people. It's that we make information accessible. So what are the do's and don'ts? Put boundaries. You're putting boundaries there, right? Be informative, respect the intelligence of your audience, but don't talk down or dumb down the content to them. And then you can create a use case example as you're producing your content to see when it went really well. Or sometimes, like as you can see here, here's one where it didn't go very well for us, right? We hired a social media manager, and we didn't have this quite completely formulated. And so we had where we want to be acknowledging our audience and our customers more than acknowledging ourselves. So something like, did you catch our most recent video? It's about us. That's a don't. So you can kind of figure out from your content, where is it going well? Where is it not going well? And essentially make this chart. So what's your trait? How would you describe it? How does it fit your organization? What do you do with that trait? What doesn't work with that trait? And these aren't opposites, by the way. It's not we're down to earth, we're playful, not serious. Those are opposites. Those are antonyms. It's got to be playful. What are some branches of playful? Well, you can go to goofy or crass, right? So we're not willing to be those things. We're willing to be playful, but we still have a professional level to ourselves. So when you're doing this, select your trait or select your archetype, figure out the traits that you want, define them, and then decide what you will allow and what you won't allow, and then build use case examples as you're building your content. So be thinking about that as we build this content out. Do we have any? I'll stop here for any questions, because I'm sure that's a lot of information. Do we have any?
People are just saying that they have light bulbs going on all around. So
okay,
we'll see what those light bulbs enlighten as far as questions go.
Okay.
They wonder if you can speak a little bit more about the use case column.
The use case column?
Yes.
Oh, yes. So let's say that, so this is kind of a living document. And I say that because as you produce your content, which we're about to get into that, that's about to be the bread and butter here in a second. As you're building out your content, you can test it and ask yourself, I'll give an example of this. This is so simple and clarity, right? This also might actually fit into playful. We did, I don't know how many of you guys remember the Oregon Trail game. I grew up on it. I'm a child of the 80s. I loved the game. So there are some really specific lessons that you can take about building a business and like the time to start. So we did a piece of content that was essentially the very first screen you see in Oregon Trail. It says, what time of year do you want to leave? And then it warns you, leave too early, you'll run out of grass for the oxen, because you're going to hit summer too soon. all the grass will fall out. There won't be any left. It'll dry up. If you leave too late, you'll get caught in the snow in the mountains. So we use this as a way to describe how to start a business, right? If you just try to go without planning, you might run out of resources. But if you try to be meticulous and be a perfectionist, you might find that you're going to get slowed down by that, and your competitors are going to surpass you. So it's this choosing this perfect time to start a business, or not this perfect time, but this perfect plan. Like there's a level of planning, but there's also a level of like, okay, the axle may break, but let's just cross that bridge when we get there. You know, we want to make sure our people don't get diphtheria. That's the big thing. Like, let's make sure our people are well fed and clothed. You know, we might lose a wheel axle, but that's okay. You know, we will deal with that. You're not going to be able to cover every single piece. That's why you guys are doing this event right now. This is a good example of that. Running a business without this may put you behind. You may not know the resources. Trying to do this, and then after you go through this program, still trying to do every single thing and making it perfect is probably going to slow you down. There's a point where you have to say, okay, we've gone through the rain. We feel prepared enough. Let's go with it. So your content, you can kind of put that piece of content we put into that simplifies and clarifies something, uses an analogy. So you will look at your content that you develop and you'll ask yourself, where does it fit into this? Was it tonally consistent with simple or clarity? If it wasn't, or if it wasn't simple, like it wasn't playful, it wasn't this or that, right? Did it fit within that mold? If it didn't, you'll put it as a don't, and you'll use that as a learning mechanism, because there's a very good possibility that some of you will hire somebody to do your content, or you'll hire somebody to run your social media. You don't want to have to hover over them and micromanage that process. You want to be able to give them a document like this so that they have a clear understanding of the do's and don'ts. And then those use cases can help them to understand, oh, I can look at an example of how they did it and see if that is a good fit. See when it went right, see when it didn't go right. Did that answer the question? Hopefully.
Yeah, we have some that are very similar.
Okay.
Each of their hotels has a different feel and a different type of travelers. Should they be designing a tone for each, or an overall tone for the company? And there's another question that's very similar is, if your company targets different audiences at once, do they need a separate tone chart for each?
That's a really, really good question. The second one is a little bit more nuanced. Without knowing the examples, it'd be hard to answer. I'll try to address the first, and hopefully that'll address the second. You have so the question is that there's a hotel chain, and each hotel chain has kind of a different ambiance, or maybe it's for a different, like maybe a more high end versus like a Motel 6, kind of for the more everyman. And so is it one message, or is it multiple messages? Is it one tone or multiple tones?
Ron, feel free to unmute yourself, Ron, if you want to clarify anything.
Yeah,
I think it's just one. Yeah.
So we have 3 hotels, one in Utah, 2 in Florence. The 2 in Florence attract a different type of clientele. And so I just was kind of curious, do I separate the tone for each hotel, or do I just say, hey, as a company, this is what we do?
That's a great question, Ron. Ron, do your hotels, do you market as one business, or do you market the hotels individually?
Depends on who we're addressing, but typically as individuals, we have separate Facebook pages and stuff like that.
I would recommend probably having a different one if you're attracting different clientele. It's always better though that if you can unite, this is for everybody. It's always better if you can unite. One, because it gives you more consistency and clarity, but 2, it also just makes it less work for you, as to be able to come up with your business, your brand as a central, like as a one person, as a central idea that you can have one tone and one piece for, so the content can kind of speak to everyone that's in that organization. But you're really going to we're going back to that customer avatar that we did a while back. You're going to want to look at the customer avatar and see what tone would fit that customer avatar. If you have multiple different ones, then there's almost kind of a feel that you're running multiple different businesses in some ways. So I would just say that because of the structure of your business, you have a very specific structure. I would probably recommend for now that, and since you're marketing to them on different channels in different ways, you're creating different content for them anyway, I would make that content specific. If there is a way that you can plan to kind of find a way to centralize that and make it one company, one voice, one message that still speaks to what's relatively the unity between all those audiences, what's central about their values or what they're really looking for. If there's a way to do that with, what was the gal's name last week that did the elevator pitch? Caitlin. So Caitlin, she did that problem solution reward kind of piece. If you can kind of go through that and see if it could speak to all of those audiences, then I would say, or form a tone around that. If you can't, if you find that you're having to do one for each individual, then I would build a tone around each individual message. That's probably the best advice I can give without knowing more of the nuances. So does that help? I'm going to assume so.
Yes.
All right.
And then one more
Yes, Ron.
question. Okay. How much time did you spend crafting your tone chart?
That's another good question. I would say that, it's going to depend on how big your organization is and who all is involved in the organization, if you have partners and things like that. But because you're going to have them come to the table and you're going to be creating this together and figuring that out together. As far as the initial piece of it, I would say, really don't spend too much time on it. Don't overthink it. I would say, sit down and do it in an afternoon and then revise it as you go. There's the big thing. I can't really say that there's like a spend 6 hours on it or spend 3 hours on it. I would say this, spend an afternoon on it, get to a place where you feel it resonates with you and that you feel like that it's going to fit that customer avatar. But I would don't worry about getting it 100% perfect. Be okay with the fact that you might revise as you go. That's the thing about marketing, is that you want going back to that Oregon Trail example, right? You want to do enough planning to go, okay, we know our characteristics. We know what they mean to us. We've got our do's and don'ts. We may have a couple use case examples, but we'll learn as we go. Sometimes you're going to have a social media campaign that actually doesn't speak to your tone, and you're going to put that in the don't. And you're going to maybe revise this a little bit. But I would say try to get it about 75 to 90% where that before you go through and start making your content. I think you can sit down. I really do think you can sit down in an afternoon and say what brand archetypes, what two do feel like they resonate most with us. Discuss that with your partners. Discuss that with your team. Then from there, pick those traits, narrow them down to 3 to 5, and then start mapping out your chart and just invest the time to do that. It doesn't have to take weeks and weeks and weeks. You can do this maybe in a week or maybe in an afternoon. So, yeah. All right. So now here's what you guys really came for. We're going to talk a little bit about there's different types of content. There's podcasts are becoming bigger and bigger every single year. Video, obviously, especially with the pandemic, grew a lot. Blogs have been around for a really long time. There's live engagement through webinars or Q&As or things like that, offering a downloadable. I recommend, as we go through this, and I will talk a little bit about this here in a minute, about how to take one piece of content and maybe break it up into multiple forms. The really great way to do this. So many of you are probably thinking, I don't have time to do all of these. And just like we talked about with social media, find one that you really feel you can invest in and do well. And don't try to attack all of these at once. And maybe not all of these fit your organization. But there are ways to say, what if we wrote a video script and then we recorded it and we just took the script and made it a blog, right? And then we ripped the audio from the video and we made that a podcast. We made one piece of content. We have 3 different avenues. The beautiful thing about this is it creates a multi-sensory learning, multiple sensory modals, essentially meaning that some people are more auditory learners, some people more visual, some people are more tactile, some people want to read their content. I know for me, you know, I talked to my dad and he's like, I don't want to watch a video. I just want to be able to read it because I can skim through it. I don't have to work through a 40-minute video just to get 2 nuggets of information. So note that your audience may respond better to one than another. If you've got an older audience, they may want, they came from a time when, you know, having an actual, you know, manual is what they wanted. If they're younger, they're probably like, I don't want to read a manual. I just want to watch the YouTube video. So be mindful of your audience, but also there are ways to do this. Note that 81% of users conduct research about products or services before they make a purchase. That's why content is so key, because so many people make their website like a billboard versus a digital brick and mortar. Remember, you want to get them in there to be able to build a relationship and ultimately sell. So if you want to get people in the door, you've got to build that authority and trust and credibility. And so how do we do that? Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but just note that another thing about content is that it allows you to fill in these holes. If you offer a free product, it takes seconds for somebody. Like if I go to C's Candy and they offer me a candy, I think Darren was talking about this the other day. I call it the C's Candy effect. If they offer you something for free, we talked about downloadables on the last 2 slides ago. You know, it doesn't take anything for somebody to grab that up. You know, that can create a funnel for you. Like, oh, they gave me a free candy. I'm going to take it. I'm going to say, you say yes before your hand is out, before your brain even recognizes that you're like reaching for the candy. And now you've added value. But if your product or service is thousands of dollars, it might take 1 or 2 months for that transaction, because they're making decisions based on, you know, are the benefits what way the cost, is there emotional connection with the need and all that. So content can fill that space. You might talk to somebody and then your content is speaking to them for those 1 to 2 months and you're keeping top of mind. So that's why this is so crucial and important. So here's how we do this. Phases of intent. This is what our exercise, our activity is going to be about, is going through the phases of intent. As you can see, this starts at the top with mild interest and moves down to ready to act, basically meaning they're ready to buy. So I'm going to use a real example. I'm going to use a movie example because I think it's really easy to get. So let's say I'm an avid reader, so I love the book Dune, but let's say I had never read that before in my life. I see a trailer on YouTube and I'm like, I'm going to go, what is this? You know, who's in this? Who directed this? You know, oh, okay. So my first piece is just curiosity. I'm not ready to buy a ticket. I'm just like, oh, what is this movie about? And then maybe I find out who's directing it. Oh, Denis Villeneuve. That's like my favorite director. Well, I want to know how it's doing at the box office. Maybe I ask my friends who've seen it before me, how'd you feel about it? Did you like it? You know, I'm testing this to see if I'm going to want to watch this movie. So if, let's say my friend Charlie loved it, it's doing well at the box office. Okay, well, when is it showing? As you can see, now I'm curious. I'm kind of starting to reach for my wallet because now I'm looking to see if the showtime coordinates with my schedule. I'm trying to see if we're a good match now, right? Before it was, is this a good match for me? Now it's, is my schedule a good match for you? By the time I'm saying, where is it showing? Where can I get tickets? I'm obviously making a purchase. So with our exercise, essentially, we're going to take these topics. All of you know your business inside and out. You should, right? You have products and services you do every day. Your people don't. And this is kind of the paradox of expertise, is that the more that we know our business, the more we assume everyone does. But most people don't, right? Most people don't necessarily know what it is you do. They may have, and even if it's a common thing, they may know pieces of it, but they don't know it to the depth that you do. So let's take, for instance, a real estate, right? You know, what makes a good home purchase? You know, what makes a good home purchase? You know, that's a valid question, right? Because it's not just about buying a home. It's like, what makes a good investable property? Let's say it that way. Okay, maybe. So I'm kind of curious. I'm not ready to buy a house yet. You know, if you're a real estate agent and you're putting out that content, well, great. I've landed on your website. I'm going back to your content. and you are slowly becoming my where, right? Okay, what makes a good investment property? Well, how is this type of investment property better than that investment property? Or how does, how does having an investment property improve my life? When should I consider making that purchase? When is the best time to start buying a home? What are the things to consider when buying a home and making it an investable property? And so as you go through this, you're seeing that I'm funneling down that funnel. Well, why do I need, why is having a property with these features beneficial, right? And then by the time they're ready to make a purchase, they've already landed. Now, so I imagine that some of you here are probably thinking, well, some of you probably already know you've been in business for a while, you've got content ready. Some of you are like maybe thinking, I've just started. I don't know where I'm going to find topics. I can't just go to my Google Analytics and look at what is being is resonating. So there are a couple things that you can do. Google Search Console, and I'll go through each one of these individually a little bit more specific in the next few slides, but Google Console is something that you can put your sitemap into. If you need help with that, I would definitely find someone that does that development work. It's not super hard to do, but to do that, so it links that. So this will actually show what is driving topics specifically to your website. It's really great. But let's say you haven't done that yet. You don't know how to do that. That's way confusing. And you don't even know where to start. These two things are a great place to start immediately. There's Answers the Public and there's YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and break these down for each one. So with Google Console, it can show you, I don't know if that's big enough for you guys to read, but it can show you essentially what content pieces are working the best. For us, you can actually see this here. Like almost all of them say something about brand name. Brand name is driving traffic to our website. So it tells you specifically, but you're going, I don't have that connected. No worries. Answers the Public gives you a couple free searches. You can, this is one connected with the real estate example again, buying a home. It will spit out all of the which, will, where, who, how, when, why, what, can. Look at all these topic content pieces that you have now. You are ready to roll. You didn't have to do any work. You literally just plugged in a piece of something specific, like a service or a product or something that people ask a lot when you're talking to them, and you're good to go. With YouTube, you can, let's say you're doing weight loss product, right? Now, this is what I recommend is typing that in, seeing what the top are, but not just going with the top videos, but actually looking at their views versus subscriber rates. So if they have very, very low subscriber, but a lot of views, that means that people are really hungry for that piece of content. If, for instance, why weight loss is all in your head, right? So let's say that this guy had, he's got 1 million views, but let's say he had 300 subscribers. Well, that's a really, really good piece of content. Let's say this one here has 2 million views and has, 10,000 subscribers, maybe not as good, right? So just look at that and see, the subscriber versus the view count will give you an idea of if these things are resonating on their own without having to have people that are already subscribed to it. That's a really, really great way to do that. If you're looking for, just type in something in your industry, just do a little homework and look at what videos are already being produced. Now there is. And
Gabriel, would you recommend that they name, let's say they're writing a blog, and they got one of the questions from that wheel that you show from Answer the Public. Should they name that blog the same as the question? Should they have keywords that they research in there? Like how do they essentially do the heading and all of that piece of content that allows you to be searchable?
That is a really great question. So actually, yes, you should spend just as much time on your headline, if not more, than you do on your content. To answer the question simply, the framing it like why does or how does this benefit can be a really great thing. You also want to build a little bit of curiosity. There's a whole, without going too deep into that, that's a whole other lesson in and of itself. We could spend 40 minutes just talking about how to write a good headline. To make to answer simply, yes, you want to frame it very, very close to that to begin and kind of test those things out. Throwing in a keyword with, or a couple keywords without making it sound forced, artificial. Remember, you're not, even though the algorithm is looking for these keywords, we're not writing for bots, we're writing for humans. So, you know, how does an investment property benefit my life? You know, may not sound the most, you know, most beneficial, right? It may not sound the most clickable. So maybe figuring out how to like make that a little bit more, to drive a little bit more curiosity. So here, like, for instance, how, you know, here's one thing that you need to know before buying an investment property. You know, that drives a little curiosity, right? What's this? Oh, I've got to know what this one thing is. Now, there is a whole, you know, the whole moral argument of clickbait versus not. If you're actually adding value in your content, then don't let that stop you. If you're just trying to get them to click and there's no value, then you are clickbait. So my recommendation is, as you're writing, you know, try to figure out if you can fit into a what, how, why structure, add a little bit of curiosity in a keyword. And then as long as your content actually has value, don't worry about being clickbaity, because clickbait is when you click on something and there really wasn't value to begin with. If there's value in your content, you're good. So yeah, absolutely. Try to frame it around that, add a keyword or two, add some curiosity, and you're golden. Maybe one day I'll come back and do a whole thing on titles, because that is a whole lesson in of itself.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. So this is why it's so important to go beyond digital, by the way. So your content, oh, I skipped a slide. So I put this on here because, going back a couple slides, I imagine a lot of you probably looked at, you know, the Google console and said, oh, brand name, it's obvious. The numbers say that. Well, numbers never lie, but they don't tell the whole story. This is why utilizing your content to actually create conversation and relationship. That's why I talked about brand at the very beginning. Reputation, relationship, building conversation is so key, because actually for us, brand name, even though it was all the hits that we got from that chart, that was actually not what was very vital. That wasn't really driving conversion for us. It was driving traffic, but it wasn't driving conversion. So I needed to find out what my customer actually wanted. Maybe they were curious about brand name, but that wasn't what was getting them to come and buy, right? I could easily, I mean, we made a brand name guide to help people name their brand, but that they downloaded it and that was it, right? Didn't really convert after that. So finding what people were really hungry for and what they really needed help with, that's why taking your content and going beyond digital is so important. There's URL, right? Your website link versus IRL, in real life. Remember, this is real people that search for real solutions in the real world. They just happen to look online every now and again before connecting with real people with real solutions. So think about online as just a portal through which we connect two or more real lives together. Don't just, you know, start and think, I'm going to produce some content and then everything's going to be golden. You want to put the social back in social media. So what do I mean by this? Don't create your content just to build up followers. Stop driving traffic. It actually doesn't matter how many, going back to the YouTube thing, right? I was actually telling you, look for the people that have lower subscriber counts and higher views, because that means their content's really, really strong, right? At the end of the day, followers don't pay the bills. You know, I often hear people counting followers, but really matters is, oops, I clicked on the wrong thing. What really matters is not about quantity, but about quality. So there's actually this thing called the 1,000 true fan rule. And the idea is that you really just need 1,000 true connected people that are really interested in your content. That's all you need. You don't need 100,000. You don't need to be this massive, you know, brand name, the whole, you know, what is it called? Shoot, you don't need to be a household name. That's what it's called. There we go. I got an infant. I got infant brain right now. I got a 4-year-old. I'm losing my train of thought here. You don't have to be a household name. You just have to be relevant to the people that are really looking for you. And I would actually even argue that some of you could probably get away with even less, right? Let's say that you have, you know, your average cost for your product or service is $1,000, right? Well, if you were able to have 100 regular, like maybe you had 1,000 people, but 100 people were really invested enough to buy. Well, you do the math. That's $100,000 this year, right? If for a startup, for a first couple of years in business, first, 3 to 5 years in business, that's not too bad, right? Maybe you want to grow past that, but to start out, if your company could be at 100,000 this year, just with 100 regular followers paying you $1,000, that's not bad. So you do the math, kind of going back to what Ellen Yin was talking about, right? You don't need a massive amount. So, likes don't pay the bills, people do. So what you're going to do with your content, I'm going to show you how to do this really quick, is that you're going to stop talking at them. Here's all the things I can offer you. Stop telling your story or trying to sell at them. And instead, you're going to start a conversation with them. You're going to listen to their needs, start showing them how your solution can improve their lives. So you're going to use the content in a way that allows you to open up the conversation. So one of the things that you can do to do this is really know your customers' needs through what we like to call an empathetic marketing strategy, understanding their problems, embodying their needs, walking in their shoes. That really can be found from what Caitlin did last time, right? When you're doing that exercise, that will help you to know what your customers' needs are, how you can promote your solution, and what you can do from there. So when you're building your content, this is how you'll frame your content strategy. Each month you might pick a high-level theme. Going back to the real estate, right? Maybe they're buying versus selling a home. Maybe one month you're going to be just talking all about all of the things that talk about buying a home. You're going to break that up into mini topics. Do they need to know about escrow? Do they need to know about when's a good time to navigate this obstacle in the market? Do they need to know about closing costs? Do they need to know about? So now you have, like, just talking about buying home, you have tons of topics, right? You could even probably break those up into what's an escrow? Why do I need it? How do I deal with that? Like, you can break that up into even smaller chunks. Now, here's the thing. You're taking your content strategy and building it into a network strategy. This is where the conversion really happens. I talked about numbers never lie, but they don't help tell the whole story. This is how I found out that tagline and slogan was what really people wanted. I started putting out content. If I was just producing content and letting the algorithm drive, I'm going to get numbers that tell me brand name, brand name, brand name, brand name. So I'm going to spit out more brand name, and it's going to reinforce that, right? As I produce more brand name content, I'm going to get more hits naturally. But as I started putting out content, and then people would like or share or comment, then I would connect with them and say, hey, it was really great. I saw that you connected on a piece of my content. What was something, like, is there something that I can expand upon? Is there a key takeaway or question that you have about what I discussed? And now you're starting a conversation with them. You can even do this in the comments. You don't have to do a direct message. It depends on the platform. It also depends on your audience, what they respond to. If you do it the right way, it doesn't feel like you're invading. If you're genuinely saying, like, I want to add more value here, then you can do that. And this one, talks about that we're both connected to this person, and I recently saw you. So you're connecting that you're not an outsider. I recently saw that you reacted to this piece of content. Is there anything that I can unpack even further? Do you have any other questions about how an escrow works or what you need to do? And so from there, I was able to find out a lot of people were wanting to know through that conversation, as it developed, that is tagline slogan. You guys can do the same thing and find out that sometimes the numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story. Brand name wasn't converting, tagline did. Taking your content, creating conversations, creating cells. So this is the last thing, and then I'll do the key takeaways, and then if there's any last questions, so we can get into the activity. So what I would recommend for you too is remember that, this is why it's really important to think about where you host your content and how you're driving content, because the goal is to bring them back to you for you to become the where. It's okay for you to be on Amazon or Etsy or whatever, and I know some of you are, and that's fine, but I would really recommend that you think about how your content works and how you can drive back, because remember, they can change their algorithms at the end of the day. You're on rented land. You don't own your content. It can, if one of them goes out of business, MySpace, anyone, a Vine, anyone, right? If your content's gone forever, and they can become irrelevant, like MySpace, right? So even though all these guys are the creme de la creme right now, that doesn't mean they will be forever. And even if they are, because YouTube's been around for close to 15, 20 years now, even if they're around for a really long time, you don't really own your content and you don't really have say if they want to promote somebody's content over you, and you're always kind of learning. Whereas if you produce your content and use these platforms as conversational pieces, as a place to connect, then you don't really have to worry as much about the algorithm and the data sets and things like that. You still want to look at those. You still want to gauge and use those, look at your Google console, look at your Google Analytics, see what's driving content. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not about massive numbers, and it's not about trying to let those drive your creativity, but it's instead about personal, relational, brand connection, finding real people, that real solutions, offering them a real solution, and then creating a real conversation and a real relationship so that you can help them to grow. And then ultimately, through you helping them to grow, they're going to naturally help you grow your business, because they're going to pay you and they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to spread the word for you, and you're going to have brand ambassadors. So here's the key takeaways, and then we'll get in the activity. I think I'm right on time. You want to go beyond digital. Your customers are researching you, so research them. That doesn't mean you have to research them in the dark room. Ask them questions, create conversations with them. Produce your content. Know that maybe you may not have a full understanding until you start to create conversations on those platforms, and you connect with them, and you really invest your time in them. Be their solution. Don't just produce content because you want to be heard, because a lot of companies are doing that, right? If you're just producing content out to the ether, well, so is every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and you're just going to be competing your content for eyeballs, their content for eyeballs, and you're just eyeballs for eyeballs. Instead, if you're being their solution, you're understanding their buying behavior through the phases of intent, and you're being social, you're going to find that your content no longer is just information, but it's a relational, it's a place to start real relationship. And ultimately, hopefully, that's what you want in your business, is to be able to have a relationship with your customers in a way that you're the one that they think of. You're that Allstate, you're that next door neighbor that they know, I've got a problem, I know where the information lies, I know who I can rely on. Great customer service, great relationship, great ambiance, great taste left in my mouth. That's a great brand. So what questions do we have left? And then we'll jump in the activity. Ani?
Let's see. For now, we don't have any.
Wow, you guys are easy
we have praises here saying that you're amazing. You and Kelly really do have a lot to give that is so valuable. I thought that would put a smile on your face, so gotta share it.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, if you guys have any questions, just, I'm monitoring the chat. We'll be able to see them and hopefully get them answered. Right now, we're gonna go through the breakout activity, right? All right, so I'm just gonna share my screen here. Actually, hold on one second. There we go. Everything is kind of wonky today with everything digital, I feel like. All right, so this is what we're gonna do on the breakout activity. We're gonna go through the what, how, when, why, and where. And then what we're gonna do is each group, your facilitator is gonna lead you through that sheet. And then we're gonna come back, talk about the next few steps. This is gonna be the base for your homework. So, just be interactive, see what you guys can come up to, brainstorm. Don't look at it as you need it to be perfect. Just do it and see what comes out of it. And so Nate, if you can please locate us into our breakout rooms, that would be great. Hola, hola, hola. Oh. Hello. Nate, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Ani.
On
I know
there?
there's, yeah, hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some folks here that I think they probably just need to click on something because they're assigned to a waiting room, but maybe they're not seeing it.
Can you guys, I think that if you guys go ahead and click on breakout rooms and you find your number, then click on join and see if that works. Doesn't seem like I can actually assign them to it. Oh, let me see. Oh,
Yeah, I see everybody as assigned, just not having joined yet.
yeah, Gabriela, si puede por favor hacer clic en su nombre, en donde está el breakout room, para que pueda entrar. Let's see, and then we have Clinton, Nancy, and Camelia. If you guys can click on your bar in the bottom, click on breakout room, and you will find your number, and then click join.
And we may have some folks. Oh,
That's all that you, no, todavía no, estoy putting wait, no, just the range. Necesita hacer clic en breakout room y va a salir una pantalla. Y entonces necesita encontrar su nombre, va a estar al final. Y ahí usted puede poner join. I wonder what this time. There we go. Woohoo! Made it. Camelia still needs to do that one. Now I was able. Oh, that's odd. She kind of joined and then didn't. And for some reason, I was able to before say join and then it didn't let me. Do you know if there's anything else we can do?
hey, Ani, so you're feeling like you're not.
Oh, we got it. She got it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, for some reason it doesn't let me. I wonder if it's because I'm a host now that it doesn't let me join a breakout room. But it's okay. I know they're well taken care of, so I'm fine.
I see. So when I click on breakout rooms, I do see a little screen where it does say join, and I think if I click that, I could join that breakout room.
Yeah, it's weird because I was able to see it at the beginning, and then now I don't.
Are you gonna hang out here for a minute?
I'll just hang out, yeah.
All right, I need to get up and then I'll be right back.
Get it.
Okay, and we're aiming for 10:25 to have everyone back, correct? Okay.
That's good.
All right, awesome presentation today, that's great.
Good. Hello, who is there on that phone?
I've got the mute off. Are you
Yeah,
there?
yes, who is this?
Oh, it's Don. I was just trying to reconnect with the class, but it's over by now. Huh?
No,
Okay.
it actually isn't. We are on the breakout sessions right now.
Oh,
So if you let me know what your name is, I can assign you. Do you know what your cohort number is at all?
I've been in 4.
Okay, so let me see if I can move you there. Assign to number 4. I think I did. Let's see. Excellent. Oh, Nate, I learned something today. All right, welcome back. I hope you guys had a great breakout session. We had a little bit more time this time around. Mentors have been asking me for a little bit more time so that you guys can interact a bit more. So I'm glad we were able to do that this time around. I don't see Gabriel.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Let
I'm
me pin
tiny.
you. Let me pin you so I can actually, let's see. All right. Okay, so Gabriel, I wanted to ask you a question here that we had in the chat when we left. So they say, so we can build a relationship by starting our contact week by asking a question. An example would be, what are you looking for? Candle making supplies or candle wax. Is that a good way to begin that engagement?
Let me make sure I heard the question right. So you're saying that the first interaction to ask the potential customers whether or not they're interested in the product, the candle wax product?
Yes, I think that's what it was. And Camelia, if you want to unmute yourself and just clarify, you're welcome to do that. I mean, Sarah.
I think I unmuted myself. It's what I'm looking at is thinking, what are they looking for in their candle wax or their candle making supplies, and getting them to tell us more what they're looking for, and so we can create more of that ambiance and that atmosphere, so we know what our customers are looking for in their candle wax and their candle making experience, because that's what part of what we sell.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with what I was proposing was that you're kind of taking your topics and breaking up like what they're already looking for. So for instance, like what is the benefit of using this type of what is soy based candle? So what's the benefit to those? Why should you use this? And then you can kind of gauge through that what is resonating. But in your case, if you're talking a little bit maybe more about market research, and in that case, putting out a survey, or doing a campaign like and I'm saying this without knowing the nuances of your customer avatar, but let's say that they're really big on Instagram. Maybe you do like a hashtag, like how are you using your candle, right? Campaign, especially with the holidays coming up, right? And so you can kind of see there are a lot of creative minds out there that are going to do things that you don't even think about, right? So, and that can be another way to get out there and do like a campaign that, they buy your candle and they kind of show it. I think Chewy did this. They send pet food out, and then the box, it's like cats love boxes, send a picture of your cat in the box. And so they did this really creative campaign there. It's really brilliant, right? So for you doing market research, content can be a little bit of that. You do content, you kind of test it, you kind of see, and you kind of pivot a little bit. But if you're talking about that pure conversation, then yeah, my recommendation would be maybe send out a survey to people that have already purchased, or people in your social media sphere, like, hey, what of these 3 or 4 ideas resonates with you the most? And then take that and engage with it. Make sure that you have a huge pool though there. You don't want to just be like, my sister commented and Frank commented, and I'm just going to take that as gospel. You want quite a few answers to that to see where the patterns are, and that content can help with that, obviously. And honestly, where you put out the content, what is the benefit of this type of candle? How does it work? Where can you get it? When can you get it? And then using those analytics to kind of see, but then also having those conversations as they respond with you, as they respond to that content piece, reach out to them and say, hey, did you have any more questions? What are your thoughts? That can help to engage. Does that help, Sarah?
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. And we are right on the top of the hour. So let me just share this one thing with you, and then we'll see if Gabriel can answer a few more questions. But if not, we do have the mentor hour tomorrow at 11 in the morning, and I will write your questions. Remember, there is no class in the next 2 weeks, but if you guys want to use the time that we usually meet to get together, practice your pitch, you're welcome to do that. When we come back, we're going to be seeing a little bit more on social media, on advertising and social media. We're going to have Rachel coming back to teach us about that part, and her mentors hours are going to be that Friday at noon. With that, I want to let all of you go that need to go right now. If you want to stay around, you can stay around. I don't know, Gabriel, how do you feel about answering another question? We can always leave it for tomorrow. Okay.
I'm happy to answer more questions.
Should they try to ask every who, what, how, like, should they ask all of those questions every time they're working on their content calendar or plan?
That's a fantastic question. And the answer to that is actually no. It sometimes, like, for instance, you know, the what questions are really for people that have absolutely no clue. One second, I just need to plug in my laptop. It's telling me it's going to die. So 1 second. Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. So, you know, if you're, I had a client that was doing sales consulting for big firms. If he would have done the what is this particular, you know, sales technique, he's actually alienating his customers because they already know. They need to know the hows and the wheres and the whens, right? They don't need to know the whats. They already know all the terminology. So be careful of that. If your product or service is something that you have to educate people on a lot, you want to do all the steps, you know. And even if it isn't, you might find that, you know, get creative with your what's, you know, what does a logo actually do for my company? You know, everybody knows what a logo is. If I said, if I did what is a logo, I don't think anybody's going to nibble on that. That's a really stupid topic for me to do, right? So you do want to try to do every single one if it makes sense. But if you know your customers are already pretty educated on this piece, then I would skip some of them. If there are things that they may think, what are some common misconceptions about logo? What are some common misconceptions about wax candles? You know, like you get creative, but no, you don't have to do them all for every piece if it doesn't make sense for you.
Awesome. And then how do you figure out in which of those 12 quadrants your brand's tone is?
Oh, the archetypes?
Yeah, on the archetypes.
So yes, that's a great question. And my recommendation for that is to pick the ones that feel like they resonate with you and your team. If you're like a solopreneur or you have a partner, it's a little easier to have that conversation. If you have a big company at this point, then you need to get the decision makers together and make those decisions together. But how you do that is here's an example of how it goes wrong. We've got Geico, and then we've got Northwest Mutual is the one with the emu. It's horrible. You can tell that that's not authentic. They just looked and said, oh, Geico's having success with a jester. Let's do that. I think that it's a natural outgrowth of how you look at your company culture, find your values. I would say identify what are those top 3 values. You know, are you, you know, is it educating your consumer? Well, if it's educating, or are you just naturally an informative person? You like coaching, you like mentoring. That's not, well, you're probably a sage. You know, look at your values. What are your top 3 values? And ask yourself, as a company, what do we really value? What do we want to really contribute with our business? And then look at, well, how are those goals aligned with those centerpieces? You know, are we trying to leave a legacy? Are we trying to find something sacred? Are we trying to connect with others? If the values are connect with others, then you've kind of got this piece of the pie, right? You've got the everyman and the jester and the lover, right? Well, if you don't want to come off sounding like, you know, lover is really more about romance and intimacy. Maybe you're like, well, let's not do that, you know, maybe you sell jewelry or perfume. Maybe we should, you know, like you have to ask, but it has to be natural. Don't force it. Don't try to be the jester just because your competitor's doing it and it looks good. Because my guess is that Northwest Mutual, or that Geico, the guys at Geico are naturally like that. And they probably hired a marketing firm that naturally, when they start talking and going in the room and planning, that's just naturally what comes out. My guess is that Northwest Mutual That's not how they naturally are. And so when they hire a marketing firm, they're like, make us like them. And they can't do it because it's inauthentic, and it shows. Those commercials are bad. So that'd be my advice, my recommendation.
Awesome. Let's see. It's okay. I have my puppy here and she got a little freaked out. Should you work on building your brand around who you are as a person and business owner?
That's a great question. Also, I just have to say, I love that you said puppy, but your puppy sounded like the dog from Sandlot, just this huge beast. So anyway.
She's a year old. She's grown up.
My puppy, roll. No, but to answer the question, yes and no. Okay, I realize I'm gonna speak to the nuance of that. So when you start a company, and I'm gonna take like a brand new company, you really want, remember, likes attract likes. Using the example of Northwest Mutual, trying to be what they aren't is alienating their customer. We usually use the blind date analogy. There's 3 components of a brand. There's core, character, composition. I kind of skipped to composition, but when you guys were asking how to identify that, you look at the core. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to think, well, okay, when somebody, let's take a big company like Nike, right? Nike's made up of thousands of employees, right? Globally. But when you think about Nike, you think about it as one person. You think about it as one entity. You think about it as, performance and progression and, doing things differently, right? So you think about these types of things. It's like a blind date, right? Every time we talk to a customer, it's like going on a blind date. Now, if you've ever known that person in your inner circle that their whole goal was just to get a date with somebody, they would say things and do things differently in every type of interaction, right? They're like, I'm sitting in front of this girl, I'm going to say this thing, and sitting in front of this girl, I'm going to say this thing. And what will end up happening is, imagine that, one of them walks in the room and hears you like, oh, yeah, that's you just say whatever sounds good. Well, your customer is even more so like that, because your customer can see your marketing, right? So in order to create consistency, what you want to do is you want to take all the decision makers and ask yourself, because you all are the decision makers. You're the ones that are creating a company culture. That's why it's internal and external. What do we value? It goes right back to that. What do we value? And those values will unite the entire team so that it becomes an entity, right? So if you're hiring people and you're working with people that value these same things that you do, then you're going to create a consistent sphere of personality naturally. Because if our top 3 company values are relational business practices, high quality education, and intentional quality work, right? Well, if I'm hiring people like that, then it doesn't matter who they are, what side of the pond they come from, they're going to all be a united front. And so when my customer interacts and they talk on the phone, and it's not me or Kelly, and it's our administrator Riley or our graphic designer, whoever it is, they hear the same message, they feel the same experience. And so that's how you do it. Get the decision makers together, find your values, develop personality around that. And then that way, when you develop all your designs and all of your marketing, it feels like one entity, even though it's a lot of different people. And then when you're leading your team, the brilliance of it, the beauty of it is that they'll know where their place is in the organization, because you're able to instruct them, look, this needs to be a relational piece. How can we develop that? How can we take, like, you hire a social media person, how can we turn this into a relational marketing piece? How can we be more relational with what we're doing rather than just following the curve? And then that entity is like, oh, that blind date goes really well because you're one person. You're not just saying what anybody ever wants to hear.
Awesome. Yes, Aaron, a consultation with Gabriel is one of the prizes. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, Gabriel.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for the winner, we are offering a consultation that goes through a lot of the value pieces and developing a lot of what we talked about in order to help, because Kelly and I really built this company with the mission of really believing that you can be profitable, but you also can be authentic. And so our goal in that consultation is to help to not only just figure out how you can make sales and talk to your customers, but it's also a piece about like, can we talk about these value pieces and these things that can help you to lead your team in a much better way, where they feel that their place in your organization, you can help lead them a little bit stronger. And because at the end of the day, if you can save turnover, you save money. It doesn't matter if you made another dollar, you save money, right? If I can do both for you. So my goal for that consultation is to help you move through those values, figure out the personality pieces, help develop strategies based on those things. That's what it's about.
Awesome. And let's ask one more question. Angela, you have your hand up. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Great, thank you so much. I have a really quick question about the pitch. And it's a video recording.
Yeah.
And I know it's to be an elevator pitch, like if you're just meeting someone for the first time, but can it be something that I would put on my website as like an introduction to me and kind of a point below to click to make an appointment with me? Is that an
it needs to be something that you can say, right? Because you couldn't like be like, I mean, unless your last part is like, here's my website, scan the code and signed up for X, Y, or Z.
Okay.
That's possible, yeah.
Okay.
So just like, I know we're in a digital space right now, but but let's try to make the pitch so that the idea of this is for you guys to get familiar with presenting your business and to just lose the fear of that and learn how to do it in a very concise way, so that every time you get an opportunity to talk about it, you actually go and get it.
Okay.
You know, so it's essentially for that, really.
Okay.
So, but what we are looking for is just to see what your business is about, what problem does it solve, and how, why should we be choosing to do business with you? That's like the main essential part of your pitch. And that's what we're going to be looking for.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
I just kind of feel like mine's going to go off the beam if I don't have some.
Yeah, and you know, we can continue to talk about the pitch a little bit more as time goes on. Do you include an initial question to start the pitch? See, here's what I'm going to do. We're actually thinking about sending an example of a pitch. I was a participant on RAINmaker last year, and I presented my pitch, and I was one of the winners. So I'm going to see if I can find that video and share that one with you. If I cannot find it, then I'll just make another one. But that will give you guys an idea of the kind of things that you need to say on your pitch. The most important thing is to just be you. Don't try to be emo. All right.
Okay.
Oh, so we're still recording. I'm going to stop the recording. So if you guys want to ask a few more personal questions, you can. All right.